So, this past weekend, something pretty wild happened in San Francisco, of all places. A huge chunk of one of America's most high-tech cities just went dark. And this massive power outage, it didn't just turn off the lights, it actually brought some of the most futuristic tech on the streets to a dead stop. Let's dig into what exactly went down. First off, just how big was this? Well, on Saturday, we're talking about more than 130,000 PG&E customers suddenly without any power. And this wasn't just, your lights flickering for a second. This was a major part of a major American city completely plunged into darkness. Now, overnight, the story was all about this frantic race to get the lights back on. And Crews did an amazing job restoring power to 110,000 customers by Sunday morning. I mean, that's a massive effort. But the problem was a long way from being solved because you still had 21,000 customers completely in the dark. Okay, so the big question is, what on earth could knock out power on this kind of scale? It wasn't a storm. It wasn't just some random downed power line. Nope. The culprit was something much more central to the whole grid. So before we get to the cause, let's do a quick refresh. What is a substation? You can kind of think of it like a neighborhood's main power converter. It takes all that super high voltage electricity from the main lines and steps it down into a voltage that's actually safe to use in our homes and businesses. It is an absolutely vital piece of the puzzle. And that vital piece of the puzzle, well, that's where everything went wrong. A fire broke out at a PG&E substation. And listen to how PG&E themselves described it. The damage was significant and extensive. Right away, you know this is not going to be some quick and easy fix. When something like this happens, it's not just about the lights going out. The ripple effect across a modern city, it's huge, and sometimes in really surprising ways. So even by Sunday, some of San Francisco's most iconic neighborhoods were still in the dark. We're talking the Presidio, the huge Richmond District, Golden Gate Park, and even sections of downtown. For anyone who lives or works there, this disruption was very, very real. And this is where things get really interesting and kind of ironic, right? You've got San Francisco, the absolute heart of tech innovation, filled with all these 21st century services. But all of that was ground to a halt by what's basically a 20th century problem, a fire in a piece of industrial hardware. And if you want a perfect example of this clash, look no further than Waymo. The company's fleet of self-driving robotaxis, they had to completely suspend service. Think about that. These futuristic cars, a symbol of where we're all headed, were totally grounded because the basic electrical grid that powers everything just failed. All right, so you've got parts of the city dark, you've got robo-taxis literally parked on the sidelines. The race to fix this was absolutely on. PG&E threw a massive amount of resources at the problem right away. And you've got to give them credit. The response was massive. Getting power back to 110,000 customers in a matter of hours, that is a huge, huge logistical effort. But it still left that stubborn last piece of the puzzle, those 21,000 people and businesses still waiting. So why were those last 21,000 people still waiting? Well, PG&E's own statement really spells it out for us. Because that damage was so extensive, the final repairs were, and I'm quoting here, complex. This wasn't just flipping a few breakers. This was dealing with fire damage, carefully testing all the surrounding gear, and bringing in extra engineers and electricians for a really dangerous job. So after all this, the fire, the huge response, the complex repairs, it all comes down to the one question that really truly matters if you're one of those people still sitting in the dark. Yeah, it's the one thing everyone in those neighborhoods was asking. From residents trying to figure out what to do with the food in their fridge, to business owners losing money every hour. When is this going to be over? And the answer they got? Well, it was probably the most frustrating answer possible. As of Sunday morning, there was no estimated time for a full restoration. For those 21,000 customers, the uncertainty just became another part of the problem. And that, it leaves us with this bigger kind of unsettling thought. This whole event in San Francisco, it's a really powerful reminder. When even self-driving cars can be taken offline by a simple fire at a substation, it really makes you wonder, in this age of smart everything, just how fragile is our modern life? How vulnerable are we to a single old-school point of failure? It's definitely something to think about.